sounds like we got a lot of defensive line coaches in here. Experience-wise, I feel like kind of a ping pong ball in my coaching experience. I started out, I was a defensive back at the University of Wyoming. You may not look like it anymore, like many of us. Coached 3 years of high school ball in Wyoming. Went to the University of Washington as a part-time coach, which was a great experience for me. Growing up in Wyoming and then going into the Rose Bowl, was Don James's first year in the Rose Bowl. There's 100,000 people in the Rose Bowl. There were 300,000 in the whole state of Wyoming. You know, I couldn't keep my mouth shut. It was quite a spectacle. Went from there to Montana State, where I coached defensive line for 4 years. I was coached secondary for a year, coached linebackers, was a defensive coordinator, assistant head coach there. Went to Bowling Green under Denny Stoles, coached the defensive line there for 2 years. Came to San Diego State, went through this first spring as a defensive line coach. Then he had a falling out with his offensive line coach, moved me over to offensive line coach. I've been bragging to Del Henry. I don't know, some of you might know him up at Rancho Buena Vista. Hank, he was our GA then. I was asking what he thought he could coach and where we could get him a job and so forth. He said, well, would you go to the other side of the ball? I said, well, it's just, you just flip over what you've learned on defense and apply it to the offense, which is basically true. At that time, I wasn't planning on coaching the offensive line. But ended up coaching the offensive line for 2 years. We had a lot of success then, went to the Holiday Bowl, won the championship. Todd Santos threw for 20 million yards or whatever it was. It was pretty good for 2 years. Then he had a falling out with his defensive coordinator. We needed a defensive coordinator. I was back in the defensive line. We got fired that year. Al Luganbill came in, then I coordinated the special teams, coached outside backers and defensive line the last 4 years. So I think coaching is teaching. And it doesn't make any difference what position you coach, I don't think. If you can teach, you can coach. I go to a lot of pro camps, and you guys go to clinics, and every coaches are great thieves. Okay, we do a great job of stealing information from each other. When I was at the University of Washington, we used to go to all these different trips. Well, the spring I was there, we went to the University of Michigan. They were running a great defense. Jim Moore was our defensive coordinator. We joked with them when we left Michigan to see in the Rose Bowl. Well, that's who we played the Rose Bowl that year. We pull out all the Michigan stuff we learned from them and go right down a list. They haven't changed any. So it's something I think you need to do is get information from each other. We played Hawaii this year. They run a punt return which broke every time in practice against us. It was up and down the field. So I decided it was good enough, I'm going to put it in. So I put it in the next week against Fresno, 91-yard punt return for a touchdown. We got 251 yards in punt returns on that return that we stole from Hawaii in 2 weeks. So that's what I'm talking about. Borrowing information from other people. In going to pro camps, I spent some time up with the Rams 2 years ago. Their defensive line coach had 2 ideas that helped our defensive line more than anything in the past several. One, he had green footballs. Why green footballs? Well, he claimed that if you paint your footballs green, it makes them concentrate harder on the ball and they won't jump off sides. How many times have you seen defensive linemen jump off sides on a hard count? Some teams are excellent at it. You watched Warren Moon in the Pro Bowl. He got those guys on the other team, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. When we were at Washington, on 4th and short, he hard counted people off sides, I bet 15 times that season. Anyway, he says if the ball is green, they don't take it for granted. It blends into the grass a little bit, and they have to concentrate harder on it. Well, I think it paid off. In the 2 years since we painted the balls green, we had 1 per year where we jumped off off sides, and that's pretty damn good. When you consider around the league, it's a lot higher than that. Problem is, have your equipment manager don't paint it fluorescent green, you know, have something that kind of matches your grass. The second thing you had were hula hoops. Large hoops. They were 3 10-foot long sections of half-inch PVC connected together. So you had a 30-foot circle and a big circle laid on the ground. Now, the key in pass rush is getting around the corner to the quarterback without getting pushed by. If you can run around that hula hoop, that 30-foot hoop, without falling down and be fairly quick at it, you're going to start to get a feel for body lean, dropping the shoulder, a lot of pitter-patter steps, not big steps, and so forth as you go around the corner. We implemented those hoops. The kid, the outside backer we had from Sac City Junior College, he went from 2 sacks the previous year to a second-to-school record 14 and a half the next year, and almost all of them were just turning the corner using the simple wax-on, wax-off, shoulder under race move around the corner. But it was hula hoops we thought that enabled him to get the body leverage he needed to turn the corner. So ideas that I didn't come up with, but borrowed from somebody else that work. Let me, here's a couple of handouts for you that you want to just pass them around. You just pass them back. Take one and what this is, just some basic drills that I've gathered over the years for defensive line play. You probably used a bunch of them. Some of them that we use now aren't in here yet, like the hula hoops. And we'll talk about them as we go. We're going to talk about gap control and two-gap defenses and reactions to blocks and so forth. But you have to establish with your athletes a base of some kind. And a few years ago, when they changed the blocking rules to where the offensive lineman can use their hands and even now can grasp inside the framework of the body, you have to change your philosophy on defense a little bit to shed blocks and be able to knock hands off your body. Okay, so let me show you just a couple things initially that I like to do to establish hands. When I played at the University of Wyoming. Our defensive coordinator was Fritz Shermer, who's I'm sure all of you know. You know, he is one of the great, I think, one of the great teachers of football around. You know, I'm not sure everybody agrees with his philosophy, his defensive philosophy, but if you go watch him teach a defensive lineman, you think you were in a high school situation because everything is low-key, hands-on. He's a teacher. A lot of pro coaches aren't teachers. Fritz is. Okay. The first thing he'll do with his rookies when they come into camp is he'll teach them how to use their hands. You have to establish hands inside, thumbs up, elbows in order to shed a blocker, to keep him from getting into you. So the first thing he'll do is start everybody on their knees. They want to be able to establish quick hands on an object. When we were at Wyoming, he used to have a board with a helmet on it, and he'd hang it over the back of his pickup, take the pickup out of gear, and have the defensive lineman push his pickup around the field. We didn't have money for a sled, I guess. I don't know what the deal was. But the first thing he does is get your butt on your heels, hands holstered, so they're right here on your hips, and all you're trying to do is get your hands to the object. It can be a board, it can be, we have what we call a bucker board out there. It's a homemade, it's a 2x12 covered with padding and some of that naugahyde stuff, and it's cushioned a little bit. There's some springs on it, so when they strike it, it goes in a little bit. But it's on a sled that they can push around. What we're trying to establish is trying to get our hands on the offensive man quicker than he can get his hands on you, and that's the name of the game. Hands inside and quick hands. So establishing the first drill, all you do is put your hands holstered on the movement of the ball and always using the ball. Ball moves, striking, just seeing how quick you can get your hands up. Now, you want to emphasize thumbs up. Now, if you're striking on a board like that, you obviously can't strike like this like you would on a real dummy or a real person grasping the armpits or whatever it is. But you still can emphasize elbows inside, thumbs up, and trying to get your hands on that object as quick as you can. And make it a contest and make them watch the ball. So as we're moving the football, and they're watching the back tip or whatever you have them watch, or it's a green ball and you're watching the back tip of a green ball, just making sure that they're seeing a ball out of peripheral vision. When you move it, they're striking with their hands on the sled just as quick as they can, and then getting right back in the holster. You're trying to do that in order to establish quick hands, hands inside. Okay. Next drill, same position, same sled. You can use a 5-man if you want to, and that's what this thing is right here. And it explains a little bit of detail. You know, the 5-man prong sled that, who makes that? I can't remember who makes it. Anyway, there's some spring to it. Again, on your knees. Now we want to teach a hip roll with it. Okay? So, also hands, but as you bring your hands, you want to bring your hips as well. Because that's where your power comes from, is the big muscle group right here. Holstered hands, first hands, then this move where you're popping your hips out and striking with your hands inside, elbows in, thumbs up, and so forth. Now, when they strike the bucker board that we have, they can actually lift the bucker board off the ground and roll the hips. But what you're looking for here is explosion in the hips. We had a defensive lineman when I was coaching defensive line by the name of Bobby Graff, and he was, when you refer to a guy as being cock strong, you know, he's not a great lifter, he's not a very big guy, he's wiry, and he's got great hips, and that's what this guy had. All the one-on-one drills that we did, you could see where if he had his hands inside and rolled his hips, didn't matter who he was going against, he could knock him off the ball. What you also want to remember is the offensive linemen, they're trying to get their hands inside too, so they're going to replace. So if you got your hands inside, an offensive lineman wipes inside, you got to do the same thing. Okay, we'll get to that drill in a second. Next thing we do is instead of having a dummy here, you take a live guy. Okay? You stay on your knees just like this. You put him, when the other defensive lineman, in a 3-point stance, 2 or 3 yards away. First time I saw this drill, we were doing it at the University of Washington. Jim Morrow was the defensive line coach then. It brought back memories. Let me regress a little bit. The first drill I ever did as a freshman at the University of Wyoming, back in the days when I was one of 125 guys on scholarship. There was no 30 scholarship limit. So the drills were designed to see how tough you were. My first drill, swear to God, as a college freshman, I had the ball. I was the ball carrier. I was on my knees. The defender was 10 yards away. I mean, the tackler. Whistle blew. I had to sit there. He came and ran as hard as he could, tackled me right here. Got up, looking out my ear hole, I'm thinking, this college football, this is something. You know, I like it. Anyway, that's not the drill. Okay? The drill is this. He comes, now he can come pretty fast because this guy has leverage, and it teaches leverage and hip roll. As he comes off the ball, again, hands, hips, roll, and when you catch him in his chest, you'll pop him straight up in the air. Have the guy come as hard as he wants. If you're using quick hands, hip roll, you'll never get knocked back or off the ball, okay, even though you're on your knees. What it's teaching your guys is, look at, you don't need your feet if you have proper hips and hands. Now, you got to use your feet, obviously, but you don't need them like like you do if you have your hips and hands working. And that's this one-man butt is the next one I have there in your handout. And that explains it a little bit more. I don't know if I have any film on that or not. But again, what we're trying to establish is hands. Inside hands win. The next couple drills you can see there are also butt drills, but they're 1, 2, or 3-man butt drills, and you can look at those. We're not going to talk about those. Okay? The next one I just want to talk about briefly is, we're talking about establishing hands, is the medicine ball. A lot of guys have to play against low blocks, cut blocks, teams that run option are notoriously cut blockers. Okay, and I know that they're coming out with those big balls and so forth that they roll, and that's practicing getting your hands down and so forth. Whenever we play a cut team, we use a medicine ball to start, because cut blocking is not something you can defend against if you haven't practiced in a long time. Invariably, when we play Air Force, we lose a defensive lineman or 2 to ankle injuries because we can't keep them off our feet, off our legs. Okay? Start with a medicine ball, and I didn't bring one, but it's pretty easy to visualize. Just get your defensive lineman down in their normal stance. You can kneel from him about 2 to 3 yards away. You've got the medicine ball in your hands. He's in his stance. Okay? All you do is from here throw the medicine ball at him. He's in his stance. Okay? All you want him to do is take that first step, get his hands up, and be able to knock the ball down, keep from getting into him. Throw it as hard as you can, because if his hands are too wide, the ball's going to get through, it'll hit him in the nose or in the nuts or something that'll make it uncomfortable for him. If his hands are inside like they have to be when they're defending a blocker, they're going to be in pretty good shape on the medicine ball as well. It's not going to hurt them. We even do it without helmets on during our off-season conditioning program, but it teaches quick hands, it teaches defending the low block wherever it happens to be. Then you have him, after he defeats that ball, shuffle down the line like it says in this handout here. Have another coach with another medicine ball and roll it at him or throw it at him, which forces him to keep his hands inside, down, and push that hat of that cut blocker down and away from him. Okay. You can see other cut drills here we have in the handout. The one over the bags is pretty good as well. You have the agiles down, you put them about 2 or 3 yards apart. You have your other defensive lineman, and this is a good drill that, you know how defensive linemen, when you don't have pads on, you kind of look for things to do. Dig some drills out of this because they're pretty good. You know, the guys are over there doing skelly, and that's, you know, they can go skelly in no pads for hours. And we're down there at the other end trying to figure out what the hell to do for 2 hours while they're up there running skelly. Anyway, this is a pretty good one. It'll give them a headache if you do it too long. Put your agiles down, put your other guys in the bags. Their hat even with the end of the bag, get them on all fours, okay? And all they do as their man approaches over the bags in a defensive line, trying to be in a low position, all you do is lunge at them, okay? It's the next step from the medicine ball. It's a slow lunge. It's the hat coming instead of the medicine ball. You're having to step over a bag, keeping your body down, so as you're stepping over the bag, if my outside arm is here, I want my outside foot back. As I'm stepping over the bag and got lunges, I want to press down and away, hands inside on the helmet, and then step over the next bag and knock the next guy's hat down and away. Okay? Trying to keep him from getting into my legs. Emphasizing butt down, elbows in, thumbs up. And you can make these as live as you want, like this next one, the drop foot. Okay. This next drill, the punji stick, I got this. I've been doing this one a long time. I can't remember where I got it, but I know Bill Williams and I have talked about it quite a bit. You know, it's tough for a young guy to realize, to get the feel for shoulder turn. An offensive lineman is going to get that shoulder turn downfield so you can't get off and make the play. He's going to try to pin that outside shoulder. Or he's going to try to cut off you and pin the inside shoulder. Well, young guys have a tough time getting a feel for body leverage. So what we did is we just got some closet rods. Okay? First time I did it, I took the one out of my wife's closet. She wasn't too happy about that. It was a little too long, but it serves a purpose. Just have them stagger their hands. One guy's on offense, one guy's on defense. Have them try to cut off by pushing the inside arm and pulling with the outside arm, or reach, which is just the opposite. Bill Williams calls it flattening the pads, okay? You want to keep the pads of the offensive lineman flat so that you can wipe across the face and make the play. To get the feel for shoulders getting turned downfield, we want to push-pull. We always want to push with the upfield shoulder and pull with the downfield, just so that we can keep those pads flat so we can wipe outside